Notice number 4 of 2019. It is instructive to the chairman to note that in that legal notice, among the issues that were addressed was I can complete the list now that I have it. Johns Hopkins University Hospital, Duke University Hospital, University of Cincinnati Academic Health Center, University of Botswana, Aga Khan University, and Moore University in Eldoret. So these are the hospitals which were looked at as success stories in giving the persuasion to establish the Kenyatta University Teaching Research and Referral Hospital as a standalone parastatal. The chairman, I was saying, it is instructive to note that in the legal notice, the following was provided, and it still stands, that the university, the hospital was to, among other things, B of that legal notice, it was supposed to provide facilities for medical education for the Kenyatta University and for research, either directly or through other cooperating health institutions. What of the first? Page 4.
Page 4, the second document.
Yeah. It was to provide facilities for medical education for Kenyatta University and for research, either directly or through other cooperating health institutions. The C of it was to provide facilities for education and training in nursing and other health and allied institutions. And the other one was doing or performing all other necessary functions or activities of a national teaching, research, and but more importantly, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that the legal notice recognizes that this hospital is to be both a research and a teaching institution for Kenyatta University and any other related institutions in the particular areas of medicine. So, Mr. Chairman, that having happened, then we can move forward. Is that there was the issue of operationalizing now the hospital facility to offer those services. And what happened is that a committee was set up, a joint committee was set up involving Kenyatta University and members of the board of the hospital to see how now this collaboration between the hospital and the university was going to be organized. Unfortunately, what attended to happen is that the university, members of those committees from the university at some point appear to have abandoned participating in any meetings. And I don't want to place blame here on anybody, but it looks like, if you remember the history that went on around the period after that, bad blood seemed to have crept in, and the university felt like they were being left out. Now, another time, the MOU about the collaboration was actually signed between the two institutions, even though they were meant to be one. So the issue that came next was what are the categories of students from the Kenyatta University Medical School who are to access the hospital. They were students, undergraduate students, medical students, and those taking the general medicine and nursing and pharmacy. Now, in 2017, there was enacted the Health Act. When this parasite was set up, it was set up at the level of a referral hospital. Now, we have been categorized as a referral hospital. That meant it had to now be placed at a different legal regime. It was the Health Act, which had been enacted in 2017. And it means, therefore, health hospitals, the referral hospitals, as you know, under the fourth schedule, they fall under the national government, of the national government. So the hospital fell now under the ministry. The national government institution went to the Ministry of Health. Even though, as I've stated, the idea to set up the hospital was one by Kenyatta University. And it's also set up within Kenyatta University land. That is a different story, Mr. Chairman. It has been argued before, and a determination has been made that actually that land belongs to Kenyatta University. There's a court judgment to that effect. And therefore there's no doubt about where the hospital is. It is on land belonging to Kenyatta University. I think currently it's on space of about 69 acres. Now, under the Health Act, there are certain requirements for any institution offering training in various areas of health sciences. They have to apply to various bodies for accreditation. So, Kenyatta University, because of this part of land that they developed, Kenyatta University never applied for accreditation. And this did not happen until very, very recently, actually in the month of July. It's when the Ministry of Health also, I think when the matter began appearing in the newspapers, that's when the Ministry also decided that they needed to sort out the issue of accreditation. The people that Kenyatta University has Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council as guidelines on teaching institutions, universities and colleges, and they must apply to that council for approval. And once the application by the teaching institution is received by the board, the council informs the training site, which is the hospital, of the intended. They go and visit to do an inspection of the facilities. The Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Council inspected Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital and accredited it as a training site, allowing the facility to act as an accredited teaching hospital for Kenyatta University School of Medicine. This, as I said, happened just the other day. And this regulatory accreditation is valid for a renewable period of 3 years, which now allows the School of Medicine students from Kenyatta University to access the level, because this is a level 6 facility. And since then, the CEO of the hospital has written to Kenyatta University indicating their readiness to receive undergraduate medical students starting this month of September. They also recommended that the hospital and the KU School of Health Sciences operationalize a joint committee, agree on the modalities and logistics of the clinical rotations, such as those related to the use of the training academic block and provision of consumables, and to facilitate enforcement of discipline, good professional conduct, and observance of medical standards among medical students and academic staff. The other category of students is those undertaking nursing. Again, there are similar requirements. Again, this has happened. The Nursing Council has visited the hospital, inspected it, and they have issued the report to the Ministry of Health indicating that the hospital is ready and has a capacity to train nurses from Kenyatta University. However, the university will need to apply for accreditation to be issued as per the Nursing Council of Kenya guidelines. So the Nursing Council actually went to visit the hospital, even though Kenyatta University has not applied. Just in readiness. The other categories are the graduate pharmacy students. These ones, Kenyatta University is yet to apply to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. It's a requirement for all institutions, universities, and others who wish to offer training in pharmacy, just like the others. So, Mr. Chairman, to address the issue of the question raised is access. I would say that students undertaking nursing and general medicine are now at liberty to access that facility. In the past, it had not been possible because of those minor procedural issues of accreditation and certification, the various bodies. That will be my response to the issue of access.
Senator Alda. I think let me begin by thanking you for putting some light on this matter. Based on my observation, there are two issues that you've attempted to clarify. Issue number one is the issue of the relationship between the two institutions, and that there was a meeting held that decided to initiate the process for legal notice number 4 of 2019. One, are there any minutes to that meeting? And maybe if they are, you could probably share with us so that we can be able to, because now you're the AG, and I know you had mentioned that the former head of public service was in that meeting, and you gave the history that they looked at the example of John Hopkins, Duke, Aga Khan, and Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. How are you going to deal with the issue of the land? And I'm asking you this question because of two reasons. Reasons number one is that it is apparent that when the then Vice Chair, Professor Olive Bugando, was thinking out about this institution, they hadn't thought out about the administrative, whether it's going to be a level 1, level 2, up to level 5 or level 6. I'm also aware that the government has leased out about 30 acres of land to the WHO, as well as leased out 10 acres of land which belongs to Kenyatta University to CDC. What, according to you, would be the best way forward in terms of, one, the issue of the relationship between these two institutions? Because it appeared to me that there is some serious bad blood between, and I like being very candid, between the VC, Wainaina, and Professor Mugendo. And I don't know whether it's because the current VC used to be the deputy for many years. I don't know whether that's a problem. Because I'm just trying to quibble with this issue of him not applying for accreditation. So what are you going to do? is it possible, number one, to use the same approach used by the government now that this is a parastatal? And if it was to revert back to the university, it will affect various legislation, including the Health Act. Is it possible to first of all try and resolve the issue of the land, maybe apply the same thinking that has been applied in leasing out that land to WHO and also the CDC? And I also know on the opposite side of the road, 120 acres is occupied by squatters. So, because I've been looking at even the financials of the two institutions, and currently Kenyatta University is not doing well, but the hospital is doing well. How can you help us solve that issue of the ownership, whether Kenyatta University leases it out? And the reason why I'm bringing that issue is because unless you want to cancel legal notice number 4 and also maybe amend the Health Act, those institutions, there's no way they can be able to be merged. They have to be run separately. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about how you can deal with the issue of the ownership of the land? Because maybe that could be the beginning to trying to resolve this dispute between these two institutions. And I have a few other questions later to ask.
Senator Mugen. Yes, Honorable Attorney General, this brings a lot of clarity to the issues. But the only one I want you to maybe tell us how you'll go around, how the government will go around it. The land is registered with KU, and they have a title. So will it be, when you report to us that there's a proposal by the government to subdivide the land and register it under the referral hospital, how will it be done, bearing into mind the property rights in the Constitution without any consideration? That's where I'm not understanding how that acquisition will take place. Maybe you can enlighten me how the government will do that without compromising the property rights of the university. Yeah.
And maybe before you answer that, AG, my first question would be, is legal notice number 4 of 2019 legal? That is one. 2, I don't know whether you have had a visit to Kenyatta University and actually seen the academic block that has been rendered out. I don't know whether you have had a chance to see the current medical school, how it is operating in various parts of the whole university in a very disjointed manner. And if we talk of access, I was just listening to you make the proposal, and I think probably you need to make a visit to that university. What is it that motivated the head of public service to leave out the university, which is a critical stakeholder? The university is the one that conceptualized the idea of the hospital and actually implemented it to some extent. And the issue of the financial health of the university is that even at that time, the university had been declared insolvent. The hospital is not healthy because it is doing some miracle. It's just receiving money from the exchequer. So there is nothing. They are not generating any serious money. Actually, they are receiving a lot of money from the exchequer. What would be the difference? Finally, the technicality of the Health Act, in my considered opinion, was just used to remove the hospital from the university. Don't you think that we are in a situation as a country for this hospital where we have a facility that doesn't have a legislation that probably hampers it properly. And don't you think it would be then in place to put in a legislation or amend the Health Act to cater for teaching hospitals? When you look at, and the honorable members were there during our visit, if you look at what the hospital is actually attempting to do, they are actually attempting to become a training institution. They want to train their own nurses. They have a center now for training, I don't know what. Exactly what was in the vision of the university is what now the hospital wants to do, and the hospital is not a teaching facility. So if you tell us a referral, this is a referral hospital, then they should leave the teaching component and then to the university. And the issue of access, and I think that is something that really needs to be dealt with. There is no way, in my opinion, what we saw there is that actually the hospital is in full control. They can allow the university what they want, and they can send them away when they want. Two, if you have a board of 9, and there is only one member from the university, it is irrelevant. In fact, in the first place, there is no need of sitting in that board. If you look at the design of the mortuary, fantastically designed for training. In fact, it has 2 components, where you keep the bodies for purposes of public and whatever happens, and where you do your training. And for a higher level, and I think this country, the visioning was actually well thought out. At the mortuary where learning would happen for postgraduate at the high level. The lower level medical officers would be learning elsewhere. But the designing was tweaked. You have the operational mortuary and you have the training mortuary. If you go to all these other facilities, they were designed that way. If we talk of allowing the university, and the university also invested some money, that's the other thing that also needs to be looked into, almost $1 billion shillings. Will the university be allowed to occupy the spaces they're supposed to occupy? And then, in fact, for me, the tuition block, I mean, if you see the design, the laboratories that are inside there, the teaching lecture halls for purpose of practical and so forth, it was well thought out, and I think it will probably be one of the model teaching hospitals we have in the country. So how is that going to be married? Two, on the issue of the land. You know, a title is not a piece of paper. And the university holds it. And the university feels that this is our property. And we thought about it. And we wanted to run it. Is there a situation where government can force the university to surrender the land? What would be the mechanism that will be put in place? And finally, there is a CEO in that hospital. The act is very clear. Should be a medical doctor. He is not a medical doctor. And those are part of the governance issues probably bedeviling the university. How are we going to wriggle out of that process?
Yes,
Senator Esi.
yes, through the chair. Thank you, Chair. This is Senator Okenyuri Esi. Welcome on AG. Just to place emphasis on what our chair is saying, when we actually visited the site, what's on paper is different from what practically is happening. In fact, it's like a favor for those KU students to walk into that bit of the facility. So if you are thinking of any solution, even as government, you also need to put in mind, conceive, to file this petition who are trying to put pressure. But the other facility is very confident that they have the paperwork and they are doing their business as usual. So in just emphasizing what the chair said, really that there are so many questions to be answered because on the ground, practically what's happening is very different. Thank you.
That's a mouthful. But I think, well, let me say, start with the issue of the land. But let me start because the chairman raised the issue with regard to the position in law of legal notice number 4 of 2019. If you look at
could you respond to that in line with Executive Order number 1 of 2023? Those two together.
Yeah. In fact, maybe executive order might be, it's maybe there is I think it's section 7 on existing laws. Part of the transition, the 6th schedule is the transition provisions of the Constitution. All existing laws are to be interpreted as being valid to the extent that they are not in contradiction with any of the provisions of the Constitution. And therefore, all existing laws as of the date of promulgation, 27th of August 2010, they are deemed to be legally binding and valid to the extent that they do not have provisions that contradict any of the provisions in the main body of the Constitution. Therefore, it means here that the State Corporations Act, I think it's Cap 446 of 1986, is valid. Now, if we begin from that point, that act is valid. It has not been, well, there have been some court cases, attempts to declare it unconstitutional, but the courts have said no, it is valid. So it's section 3, subsection 1, gives the president power and authority to set up or establish parastatus state corporations. And therefore it means legal notice number 4 of 2019 is, for all intents and purposes, legal and valid. And the Kenyatta University Teaching and Research and Referral Hospital is not the first or the only parastatus that has been set up that way. There are quite a number of other parastatus in Kenya which are set up under the authority of that section 3, subsection 1. So, to that extent, if you just go to be legalese, it is valid. And indeed, it is the only, being the only authority that we have establishing this facility in trying to understand why things happened in the way that they happened. And this brings me to now the issue that I think both, particularly Honorable Rekina, Honorable my friend Senator Omugeni has also raised, and you, Chairman, brings me to the issue of the land. Granted that, okay, Kenyatta University itself is a parastatus. I think we must also understand that all public universities are parastatus. That's why they are always, even their books and everything are already saying they are at liberty to decide to establish a parastatus within another parastatus. And I have some examples of this. And I say this because I've also had the unique experience of having chaired the Public Investments Committee, which has actually investigated this matter of land ownership, and more particularly the contentious issues of the 30.8 acres, which is famously known as the Kamai's quarters, occupied by the Kamai's quarters. Indeed, some of the issues that were taken to court, even the court judgment, relied on part of our recommendations as PIC
because we did find that indeed these were legitimate quarters. And that's why even in the judgment that just declared that the whole land belongs to Kenyatta University, has recognized that 30.8 acres should be given to those squatters. 30.8 acres. 30.8 acres should be given to those. They have been there for many, many years. Indeed, when I think I was dealing with that matter at PS, it must have been about 20 years ago. So it's an old matter, and I had actually dealt with it when I was just a member of the committee much earlier. And that's why I'm saying, at a personal level, I feel, yes, government, you can say, after all, even the parastate of Kenyatta University belongs to you. But you see, there's also decorum when you are in doing things. That appreciating that Kenyatta University is an established public institution where government can argue legitimately that we own it, just as the rest of the public can claim. But surely, if you are going to hive off any portion of that of the land that belongs to it, it's only fair that you involve them. So I think there's a question of decorum in the way the whole thing was done, which again, unfortunately, is not a part of my brief. But that is my personal view. I think it could have been neater than this. And also, our government having come into the picture about the concept of the teaching and referral hospital. The university came up with the idea, fronted it, and through the relevant channels, involved government as the parent, that we have this idea, we want to do this. So government looked at the idea and said, this is fantastic. Actually, you can go ahead and we will guarantee. So we were able to look for financiers. Exim Bank of China. So for high-level medical training in various fields should not be lost because of this tussle. And in fact, it's you, Honorable Olekina.
Allow me, I had not remembered her, but allow me to ask her now a few questions. Not even a few questions, because there's something that you have not visited, but she should explain. Starting with the academic block. Do you think that academic block is having the intended purpose? And do you sit in the board? She will answer it.
She will respond.
Yes, I think it is extremely.
But let me
Let you finish.
Let me make this,
I have a couple of questions for her.
Yeah, that's why I came with that.
I hope also, I don't know whether the visit was, Senator Esi asked, whether the visit was for the hospital or for the university. Yeah, both. Okay, but my concern, I was trying to understand your query also, is it that the students must be given the right to visit the hospital if the university has not requested?
Let me explain to you, Olekina.
No, let me finish. So
because you are not there.
No.
Let me help you. Because we visited there, and it's a very unfortunate and sorry state. And I think it is extremely important, personally, AG, before you make your recommendation, make a visit. It's not even about, leave alone the access, the way it was set up. These are people who are walking about 6 or so kilometers trying to locate classrooms and labs. And these are medical students. And you see the difficulty we experience, and I think that's what AC was trying to say. We have laboratories for the normal science But we also laboratories that are supposed meant for medical kind of training. You can imagine a situation. No, at the university. The medical school is literally using what is for the university actually for all of science. And let me say that I was a student in that university. What the laboratories are using are what we used to use in biochemistry. What used to be School of Biochemistry is what is now being shared, chemistry, biochemistry, medical school, and so on. While in the university hospital, and I want to encourage you, Senator Olegina, to visit, there was a specific block for all that medical school to operate from. The mortuary itself is designed in a manner meant for study. But now it has become a commercial. So the problem that even the students are experiencing is the time it takes to shuttle between classrooms when you are changing for purposes of academic study. Now, the university is using Kiambu. They will still have to use Kiambu for lower levels and so forth. But imagine having a lecture at KU, is ending at 10, and you are supposed to be in Kiambu for your practicals at 10:30. How practical is it? And that was the messaging, the basis. I think what should not be lost in all this discussion, the visit, starting at teaching and referral hospital. So I think that is the issue. And if there is need for a second visit to that place, I think it's extremely well necessary.
I can see many of you went to university much more recently. But I just, when you were explaining that, I just remembered that during my days in the University of Nairobi, we had medical students and they were being transported by the university bus. Others would walk. The first and second years used to be in that year they go together. I think because the issue of the distances that they have to cover, I think is a matter that the university itself must have well appreciated. It is not unique to that.
But that is the reason AG, they decided to build the academic block.
Yes. So the reason is, and you say you stopped when you interjected when I was saying I made some proposals. We will not be able to resolve this matter when we call this, when we work in silos. And I'm trying to avoid, my proposal is I'm trying to avoid that original scene where Dr. Kinyua called the Ministry of Education, National Treasury, Ministry of Health, to the total exclusion of the administration of Kenyatta University. When this decision to set up this paracetamol in 2018. So my proposal is, and that's what I say, there must be a problem. If those two professors are the problem, then they must be, they can be excluded because we must look at the greater education. Yeah? The Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, and the National Treasury, and if need be, I can be a peripheral, I can be an observer, to sit and come up with a mechanism of making sure that that hospital in its operations goes back to the original idea. Some of the issues that Mr. Chairman and Senator Essie pointed out, which government had accepted and indeed went supported so heavily by even guaranteeing the loan. In fact, not just guaranteeing, they've been paying the interest, now they're paying the principal. So, because there is that public interest must be meant to work together with the original intention of the university also. So there must be a meeting of everybody. Nobody should be left behind. So that the issues with the chairman you've raised, can all of them be addressed where everybody is able to own up? Because when the documents that you read,
He told me, oh, it's an MOU. I mean, they entered into an MOU, set up a joint working committee, implementation committee. Then, after some time, you read the MOU appeared to have been slanted more in favor of the hospital, and that Kenyatta University then decided in saying that we also need that facility to serve the rest of the mankind in this country and maybe in the region. Because from what I've read, and indeed, Mr. Chairman, I think you yourself have confirmed that it looks like a state-of-the-art facility which is not being applied for the purposes that it was intended to. That is my proposal, Mr. Chairman. But I want to go to the issue that the Honorable Olekina raised about the land. See, that land belongs to the other university. Yeah? If government wants to give out part of it, there is a mechanism in law. Because the university belongs to is a public university, so government should be ready to talk to the university. I do know, Mr. Chairman, some things that perhaps I may not wish to say too much about it. I was involved in trying to resolve the stalemate late last year, which saw this current VC go back. You know, that history, the history that was there about how the people are being called, surrender, it's all about the land. Problem exactly about that land. Being forced to surrender the mother title, which became a problem. And that's why I'm saying there's a better way of doing these things. If everybody is brought on board, and the reasons why you want to take or to give out a portion of land that belongs to Kenyatta University to whomever is explained and makes sense, understood by everybody, it should not be a problem. But as it is today, I am aware that there are some mutations that are being done to half of the 30 acres and the 10. But you see, well, maybe you may have to take a gun unless until the original title, and the council here knows, until the original title is surrendered, you can do all those things. They'll just look like the River Road prepared titles, and no court of law will recognize any title that is obtained without affecting the mother title or effecting changes to the mother title. So for me, my advice is to tell people as it is, because you must tell people the truth. If you want this is the route to go. Don't go it this way. Don't use strong arm tactics. Don't call people and threaten them with this or the other. And I'm saying this sparing the Senator Olekina, because I have some history, some history of what happened. And that is what has actually created this bad blood. There should be, anyway, this thing should have been running smoothly. I believe even the issues, Mr. Chairman, you've pointed out about, and you know, I'm happy the chairman is an alumni of Kenyatta University, so he's aware of some place they used to call Kilometer 1, which they used to visit without a lot of trouble. But even our students were to go to utilize this block, I'm sure it's something that had been well thought out. But apparently, because of the bad blood that is there, and that I think preceded the creation of the hospital, we've continued to experience these difficulties. And we cannot continue burying our hands in the sand. Let's just call the problem what it is. it is not, what has happened is not good. And if actually in the circumstances that then people become so difficult. For me, I think it's a matter that we need to take to the highest level. Call a meeting. Let everybody be there. If you have nothing sinister, if you are not hiding anything, if indeed you are driven by this desire to offer services to the public and to the students are part of the public. So really, where should we be having difficulties? And it's a sorry state that the students at Kenyatta University are now doing their practicals in Kiambu. And you look at the distance. So,
doing
the
biggest use of the facility.
Let me ask Boneji
Just
two direct questions.
Senator Ledama.
Yeah.
I think Senator Mariam has been trying to ask the question for and then you can follow.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I don't know if it has been asked because I left when it started, but my concern is, Bwana AG, you appeared Committee of Public Investment that 1st of August. You stated that the legal notice is illegal. And yesterday also, you appeared Committee of Education of National Assembly, and you said the legal notice is legal. So I don't know where, I'm confused. Where are we? Yeah.
well, it's not actually, there are not two different committees. It is, before I left Parliament, noticing the number of parasitos Kenya has, I took the decision that that committee, PIC, should be split into 3. So there's a committee, one deals with commercial issues. Some of the parasitos we have in the country are commercial, and others are regulatory, and others deal with issues of governance. So the committee, this particular PIC newspaper headline, because the newspapers will report what they think is juicy, that which will make things look juicy is what they report. They have a business to sell their papers. I told the chairman, it is not, I can check the records. I can never use the word illegal with regard to legal notice number 4. Because it isn't. And I told him, look, I explained that, just like I've explained here, that, looking at the process, which is why I was giving the history about what happened in 2018, the meetings of 17th of October, you can see something, even though, and the advice was given later, leading to the, the president issuing legal notice number 4. When you look at the way the meeting happened, you smell a rat. Because how can you have a meeting? That does not make the legal notice illegal. And that's what I even told them. It's the same committee, and I told them no. It did not make because it didn't make the legal notice illegal because the president exercised his mandate under the State Corporations Act and issued that legal notice. But look at the history. The meeting was called, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, National Treasury, and I think the AG's office was also represented. But Kenyatta University, which is the one that began the origin of this hospital, is completely left out of that meeting. And then a decision is we go, and of course, like I was explaining, I read some paper giving examples at the hospitals that have been established by universities but are run separately as independent institutions. Fine. But, be that as it may, even if it's the noblest of ideas, surely why are you leaving out Kenyatta University? They are the ones who started this thing. Why did you leave them out? That was the question I was raising.
Thank you.
It's not to say that the legal notice was illegal. Because
let's allow Senator Ledama to ask these two questions.
I wish Bwana, you would maybe not continue talking in that direction, because there are a couple of things that you said which I may want to maybe get some clarification. You indicated here that you are trying to resolve the problem of the current VC, and some of us probably dig deep into these matters. And I don't know whether, Chair, we're inviting the former head of public service to come to this committee, but that's something we may have to. Because I think there could have been some bad blood between him and the VC. I mean, I think you and I know, but we can discuss that. Let me go straight to my two questions. I think the first question, behind the tent, we can discuss that behind the tent. But I think my two questions directly on this matter, because I'd like to see a solution. Number one, you talked and you explained very eloquently on the issue of the initial thought out, that this university thought through the whole process, convinced government for them to be able to, for government to guarantee them to set up this institution. At that point, had they also included an administrative plan, whether this hospital is going to be a level 1, and no, level 5, level 6, because for students to be able to use that facility, and to be able, undergraduate student to be able to use that facility, having it as a level 6 might be a little bit limiting. And that's why most of them are still using Kiambu. Because Kiambu, when you have a level 6, it's a referral hospital. So actually people are referred to that hospital. They go to that hospital. They don't get to see the daily issues. Someone has come in with an accident. This is a referral hospital. Is there an administrative plan to that effect? Because ultimately, to resolve this...
What they are not saying is that those hospitals are owned by the university, but the university now sets up an independent running mechanism to mean they are answerable to the university. And that's the difference between KU and all these of John Hopkins, the one of Botswana and so forth. They are owned by the university. The university sets them to be independent, but they answer and report to the university. Now, my question is, I was asking, the president was within power, and that's why we asked about the legality of legal notice number 4. It is true, it is legal. But was it supposed to be tabled in Parliament under the Statutory Instruments Act? And if it was not, after 14 days, it actually is supposed to cease operating, and therefore makes it illegal. From the records we have in...
It's not a statutory instrument. The executive
Now, my final question, and that is good, your officer is here. The AG's office sits in that meeting. The AG is the legal advice of government. So what was the AG advice in a meeting that the university is not involved? And was the AG representative still there? And finally, if we have to go by what we are proposing, then I think it is the board of the hospital to go, not the university. And I have these reasons to go. First, because I had an CEO in a place of a doctor, in complete breach of the act. I don't know whether the AG's officers advised that that was not correct. But they may be ill advised on that. So if you say that is not, that's not a position, maybe you just explain to us and that component of. And finally, don't you, if as the AG, because when I read, when the university had a representation of, I think, 3 or so members, there seem to have been lesser problems. But when the rest were removed and now is 1, then I think that is where, I don't know what would be your legal advice in terms of, suppose we think of how do we reconstitute the board to bring in a bit of slightly more participation of the university. In terms of law and provision of State Corporation Act, I'm told there's a mwongozo, what can be done so that we are able to resolve in a manner that the hospital will still be able to really do what it's supposed to do, and the teaching component and research. In fact, 2 things that will be missing if we run that university as a level 6. We shall miss the teaching and we shall miss the research. And what involves better healthcare is actually research of the conditions that are happening, so that it informs the clinical part of that. So in terms of State Corporation Act, mwongozo, and so forth, for us to be able to resolve this matter in that manner that will enable the functioning and that vision to continue. What are the provisions that probably can be used at the moment as it is, even considering that the Health Act is in place, to be able to resolve that kind of thing?
You know, there's a point.
I wanted to.
Senator Mugina.
Yeah, you know, there are some matters here that I think we are mixing ourselves. I don't think there is any conflict if a level 6 operates as a hospital for medicine students. Am I right? Because when I was at the University of Nairobi, we were admitted with my cousin who was doing medicine, and their teaching and referral hospital was Kenyatta University, which is at level 6. And as you rightly put it, there is a regulatory framework for any university that wants to offer their hospital as a teaching and referral. For our case, they have applied to, do you call it Kenya? Dentist? Practitioner? Yeah. Yes. And now that they have applied and the accreditation has been given, it means that issue is on paper and legally, there are no issues. And me, I think, Chair, the way forward is what the AG has advised, that these 2 institutions must sit and the government must also assist them to find a workable solution. Because I'm told this hospital is now ready. It's ready to receive students. But I don't know, are they now using it?
Yes, in fact,
yeah, because if the level 6 is there, it can be available for use by the students. These are 2 government institutions. It is all in the best interest of the country. I mean, if you allow the 2 function, the country is benefiting one way or the other. Students are going to Kenyatta University, they are using the hospital to train. We get doctors coming to the market as a country. So I think, me, Chair, from where I'm sitting, so that we don't go round and round, the best solution is for these 2 institutions to sit, and then the government assists them to discuss the best way forward.
Chair, can I just arrive?
Okay. Senator Amina.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I came a bit late. AG, karibu sana. My name is Senator Hamida Kibwana, member of this committee. I agree totally, AG. I concur with your concerns and Senator Mugene's. The issue here is resolve, mediate, assist. At least let these 2 institutions see how they can complement one another and work together. KUTRRH has really tried to be where they are, and we cannot, of course, send them to the trenches again. And also, of course, KU deserve what they do, especially the students. But then I was also looking at, yes, as much as it may, I'm looking at maybe just thinking aloud, the Ghana students. They may even have to go to Pumwani maternity, where they would even learn more about Ghana than even just being there, in the KUTRH. So I'm just thinking maybe they may need, certain institutions. But however, let our students benefit, and then let us have a good hospital. Because seriously, the services that are being given right now at KUTRH are second to none. I've been giving an example of how I've experienced that hospital. But then also let our students, unfortunately, I would say maybe the chair, whatever she has done, she has really tried to work hard. She's put all her efforts. And this other side, of course, we have the VC was trying. Unfortunately, it's not working out. So let us see how we can come in and assist, support. But I concur with, with your decisions or maybe your ideas. Thank you.
I could ask my friend here, Olin Mucharo, who sits in the
Chair, before you give her the opportunities, the way you said board of directors, about the board of directors, the legal notice, I have the legal notice here. When we visited the school, the hospital, we have seen only one representative there from the KU. But here, almost Vice Chancellor, the head of health science, and one representative of KU, almost three, almost four, which is the board of directors, to be the constitution of the board of directors. So I agree with you, the board of directors to be reformed so that at least 5, as the legal said, four person to be.
I don't think there's really that huge challenge right now. Now that the Kenya Medical Practitioners Board has already accredited, and then also with regard to the board membership, there will be need now to have these conversations with SCAC, because the alignment of the board for one representative was in alignment in all the hospitals. KUTRRH board, MTRH board, KNH board. You'll notice the national referral hospitals are all state corporations. And what SCAC did was to align the board memberships to be 9, with each Kenyatta National Hospital having one representative, the Dean of Medical Students from University of Nairobi. Moi Teaching Referral Hospital has one representative, the Dean of Medical School, Moi. And the same thing they did with the KUTRRH. So the key issue is on these corporate governance issues, the key conversations should actually be with SCAC on how to have probably more representatives in the board and the utility of having more representatives on the board. But I am fully aligned with the Honorable Attorney General's guidance that this is an issue that just requires more consultations, more conversations, and mediation in a friendly environment rather than antagonistic environment. Thank you.
A very difficult one for you, Eji. Because you are supposed to give independent legal advice to government, doesn't your officers sitting in the boards bring conflict? How are they going to exercise their independence while sitting in a board that sets a collective kind of decision? And finally, what you have not answered, Madam, one of the big problems that is in KU, forget about this structure of trainings, training, other things, that's okay. You people are not telling us about these facilities that were meant for training, that we are all being silent, and that is part of the biggest issue the university has. And I would ask, and we asked the chair of KUTRRH, when she was the vice chancellor, she was the one who designed it. What happened when she became the chair of the hospital? Why has the vision changed? tell us about those blocks that were meant for academic purposes. Why can the university be allowed to use? Because basically, AG, in fact, in even trying to resolve this and say, let's agree on a middle ground, for example, the first thing is to allow the university to use academic block because it was meant for academics. It was not meant for rental income.
Let me get back on your question and then you can answer it properly. I think for us to be factual, and I think it would be important, first, is the building being used for rental? Has it been leased out? That's issue number one that you need to demystify. Issue number two, with the design of the institution, which is the hospital now, if we bring in students, because I think I know the hospital is on this side, the academic buildings are across. And looking at the picture, I was just looking at it from Google, you can actually look at it and see the way it was thought out. It's like the way they are done in the US, where there's a school of medicine, there's a school of economics and all that stuff. If we now allow the students to be able to use that, how will they commingle with the patients in terms of the movement around? So the two questions, number one, is it being used for rental? Because we will have to clear that one out. And number two, what do we need to do to solve that problem? Because Attorney General, you said, let's talk. And one of the issues that is coming out is that this building was intended to be used for training. What level of training is it? Is it the same level of training that students get when they're undergraduate students? That the students who are going to Kiambu, who are going to the other hospital? Or is it the level of training for a level 6, like the 92 students that you talked about?
Okay, thank you so much for these questions. I know you're asking, and I understand, although I was not in the visit, that you visited the Training, Research and Innovation Complex. The Training, Research and Innovation Complex, I'm sure is the one you're speaking about, that was really the academic block, and I understand you toured it. It is actually the main block that is used for the training, research and innovation. As you understand, KUTRRH is not only a teaching hospital but a research hospital. One, it has medical training rooms where the KU, it has been considered the KU School of Health Sciences staff and students will have shared spaces for the medical training for using of the block. So now the key issue for the Joint Implementation Committee is to agree on the room allocations. So the facilities in the medical training wing include seminar rooms, auditorium, labs, and offices, what you've spoken about. And the students will also have access to clinical areas in the wards, theaters, imaging areas, anatomy, and pathology labs. So now the key issue is the Joint Implementation Committee that was formed between KU Hospital and the KUTRRH to find a workable arrangement for the use of the institution now that there is proper accreditation for the undergraduate medical students. And that would be where they would be studying from. And of course, if they're moving to the wards, they would have now to move around the wards with their superiors or with the ward doctors doing the rounds. You really can't say that a student will access the wards. They have to do the ward rounds.
I think we are not, well, I appreciate your response. I think we need to stop there. You are now speaking as a board member. And that is the problem, AG, we are having. You know, the problem with being candid and being honest is the biggest problem we have here. She is not acknowledging, and it is a fact, that was supposed to be the School of Health Sciences, including the administration of that school. We understand how school of institutions run. We don't expect students to be going to their wards on their own. That school is where the students are supposed to be taught. The clinical part of the hospital is completely separate, and we shall have the drawings. We have seen those things. If we want to solve this thing on age, I think first I would want to encourage you personally make a visit, because otherwise the information you will be receiving is not what is actually on the ground. Even the mortuary. The training bit, the one in the mortuary, is actually meant for high level, postgraduate. Is a high level kind of training, which is the training bit. But the School of Health Science, that block was designed for School of Health Science. Can you people just acknowledge that? We don't want to be persuaded because there's a board, people moved from the university to the hospital. And now because they want to continue living in that kind and having control, you want to punish the university. I think it's really a sad situation. But if we want to solve this thing, we want to be candid. And we have said we want the hospital to run, the clinical bit, but we want the training bit to run. Even if you talk of research, AG, who is doing research? Doctors who are treating will not be doing research. They are the people who are teaching. And that is why, if you look at those buildings, they also design research laboratories for postgraduate students who are going to train. So I think, and that's why I say you are conflicted. And I want you to answer me that one on AG chair, whether your officer should really be sitting in these boards, because whenever we get advisory, it's just the same as what the board has decided. So it's no longer independent.
Incidentally, I think given Kenya's governance structure, the chairman, it's like saying that the AG should not sit in cabinet. Yet, he sits in cabinet, certain decisions are taken in cabinet, but the AG will still give his opinion. So I don't think that there is any conflict. I think just look at Article 152. What is the cabinet of Kenya? The president, deputy president, the attorney general, not fewer than 14, not more than 2 cabinet secretaries. Go to 156, the AG is the principal legal advisor to government, but he sits in cabinet. So there's absolutely no conflict in my view that the AG is represented, actually not just in this board. The AG is represented in virtually all the parastatal boards, including MTA.
We need to hear the AG rep in the university.
Yes, because they are, even there we are represented. But, you know, of course, the reason why I'm saying that there needs to be a roundtable discussion involving every of those players is to avoid a situation whereby decisions will be taken where any player says they were not involved, they were not consulted. For instance, Mr. Chairman, the issues you've raised, I want a situation whereby those two professors, Professor Wainaina and Professor Olive Mugenda, this was the original idea. Why is it not being, why has it changed? You know, if they are, like yesterday actually I was very happy when I walked into the committee. I found both of them sitting next to each other. And Professor Olive Mugenda was saying, we worked very well with Professor Wainaina when he was my deputy. Then we were arguing. The chairman there was asking, then what went wrong? I think
you and I know what went wrong. So let's move it. I think I like where you're going in terms of the round table. But now we need, because you've clearly indicated there's the issue of public interest, and there's also the issue of the interest of the university. You know, if it's my property, if it's my title, don't take it away from me. But there's also the issues of governance, which cannot be overlooked. So I think I may request, because I don't think we'll be able to get any further, if we don't deal with this issue of land. That's issue number one. The issue of accreditation, you said that has already taken place, but that it is the ministry that initiated the process of accreditation. I believe now they have done two. One they have not done. Yeah, one they've not done. And I think one way or the other, you still have to compel the university to be able to write to these bodies. No, this matters notwithstanding. Write to these bodies and seek the accreditation. Because we don't want this student thinking our degrees are not going to be relevant, they're not going to be recognized. And then I would request, because you're the legal counsel of the government, the advisor to the government, this is a parastatal. We have the State Corporations Act here that has established this as a state corporation. We have the challenges of a level 6 being used by these students, because they'll still require the level 3, level 4, level 5 hospital for them to be able to get experience on the medical occurrences on a daily basis. I think you should take the initiative, put together this, you see in cabinet. It doesn't look very good, you know, when a university and a hospital. The other day I saw the president going there to launch the cyber knife, you know. So we have to make a decision. Do we want this hospital to go back to the university, or do we want this hospital to remain as a parastatal, which the former president used the powers given to him by the State Corporations Act to be able to establish it as that? If we are to revoke that, then we have to deal with the unintended consequences. What happens to the issues of the Health Act and all these other issues? I think for me, I think that will be the issue. Deal with the issue of the land, deal with the issue of those people, put them together. You know, let's resolve this matter. Because we will investigate, Senate is investigating, National Assembly will investigate. Other matters are going to go to court. Are we just going to...
I think, in fact, listening to what the chairman said earlier, you know, and I thought it was something worthy, you know, the chairman, he did say that even though the paper that was presented at the meeting held on 17th of October 2018 gave the examples of those other universities, they failed to appreciate the history of those universities. It's one of those issues, and I believe that maybe we go to original thinking. It was the Kenyatta University was go to, they were desirous of offering medicine as one of the courses. And they felt at that time that they needed a facility. It was like we went from, Pauline. This university, this hospital is even being used by now postgraduate students. It may have been the original thinking that to a point, especially by our students who have to go to other hospitals, let's have our own facility in-house. When I look at it, and that, therefore, the university, just like universities have set up companies. In fact, I do recall when I was in Parliament, we came across, we wanted to do consultancy. There are some consultancy firms which belong to the universities. The universities have got companies. And those bodies have their own, those set up by the university have their own, management arms. But they report, just like all parasitals, whatever it is they do, they will report to the national government. I think that the original thinking by KU may have been that kind of situation. But I think somewhere along the road, they veered from that original idea. And then the idea of setting up a new parastatal became exciting. And now the excitement has died, so we are in this quagmire today. And I think, Chairman, all is not lost. And with what Senator Olakina is suggesting, if we don't really address that issue of land carefully, we will never, the bad blood will never end. Because even if it's your father who has given you land, he can't just come and take it and tell you, now this one I've given nimeleta bibi ingine na iko na mtoto hii. You will say, but surely there should have been some level of consultation. And you can see this is actually the problem is this lack of consultation. And that is the thing which I'm proposing. Because listening to both sides, I've listened to Professor Wanegna, I've listened to Professor Olive Mugenda and our team, part of the team, Professor is here. representing me. But I feel that there is need that there must be a meeting of the minds. There must be a meeting of the minds, so that, because if all of them are serving the public, well, they disagree, but if they disagree, there should be others to mediate. So I think even that issue of land, we will not get it proper if we do not, if we don't, we first of all address the sensitivities and, you know, the emotions around it, which is now going to the students. Because, and you know, unfortunately, Chairman, you said that now, in fact, I think it's you, Senator Lukina, who said now there are even other squatters.
No, on the opposite side. On the opposite side of that land, KU land has been a problem. KU, 120 acres is occupied by squatters. There are buildings, big buildings. This side, this. So, in my view, and I like the angle you're taking, if the worst come to the worst, then through your office, you develop a mechanism where KU leases land to these entities and some revenue.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So we must recognize that the land belongs to them, so that whoever it is that is being given, even the national government intends to give it to whoever, let us also appreciate that it belongs to KU. Don't first of all hide it from them. Because the moment, you know, whoever it is, they could be very, very well-meaning international organizations. But you know, the way they will have come to the site, I'm telling you, for the longest time, it will continue being, you know, exercising the minds of both the administration of the university and even the students. So it's only fair that we should have some way of appreciating, you know, that yes, KU, this land belongs to you, and we are asking you kindly appreciate the original ownership of the land, or continued ownership. It is something that leaves everybody, you know, having a little bit of smile. The chairman.
I think, Mr. Chairman, to conclude, just one thing. I think we should not be strangers to a fiduciary responsibility. We must also take into consideration how these institutions are run. Budget goes to a monument. You can't. It's ridiculous. So there's also the issue of fiduciary responsibility, which we also have to address. So in my view, and I think maybe it would be premature for me to give my view at this stage, and maybe I will hold it. I think we need to look at a situation where these two entities coexist, have a cooperation, you know, but they run separately, you know, because I think it would be better we have the state corporation, or if KU is adamant and saying we cannot release our land, then they have to be compensated or something has to happen. Yeah. And then while you're at it, deal with the issue of the squatters.
No. For you to make your independent, I think you'll have to visit. Otherwise, we might not resolve. We will continue in the way we are going. But I appreciate the thinking is exactly what we were also grappling with as a committee, to see to it that how I think we want to leave it at that. Of course, we are still going to deal to listen to Minister of Education and Treasury and also SCAC. And I think probably from this we shall now, looking at the way the composition of the boards, particularly of all these teaching and referral hospitals, probably there is need to look at all of them comprehensively, so that we have, although there would be need for a kind of uniform, but it can't work. I think the thinking that went there to say let's align it so that we have only one uniform state corporation it doesn't work for this teaching and referral hospital, because at the center of it is research and teaching. So we cannot, I think there is need to accommodate them so that the aspect of research can properly come out, even within the structure of a state corporation. I think for these teaching and referral hospitals, there is something. Because if you, and I think if you read the document that was behind the establishment of these hospitals, they were actually trying to run away from problems Moi University School of Health Science have experienced, University of Nairobi have experienced, and that's why they wanted their own that they own. But I believe we can have an hybrid now of the two that caters for everybody and makes everybody comfortable in terms of legislation and even functioning. So I think we want to leave it at that and say thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate as a committee. How easy is it for the Attorney General to come? The Cabinet Secretary we have pursued for a whole 2 years. We don't even want to mention them because it's but I think as an advisor of government, I think you need to advise